when I'm trading, I'm kind of listening to myself as much as I'm listening to the market. So that's what I'd be looking out for, is intense feelings, intense emotions, my instinct to kick in and say, this isn't a good frame of mind to be trading in.
Two traders, Darren and Walter, pull back the curtain on profitable trading systems, consistent money management, and profitable psychological triggers. Welcome to the Two Traders Podcast.
Welcome to the Two Traders Podcast. It's Walter here. I've got Darren on the line. How are you today, Darren?
I'm really good, thanks, Walter.
Darren, I got this email from a friend, a trader I know, I've known for a while. He's a really good trader, and he said, Walter, I'm in a bit of a drawdown now, and it looks like you are too, and I was just wondering, what do you do here in this situation? And I have some thoughts on this. I think that this is a real danger period for a lot of traders when they get into a drawdown. They've had a few losers in a row. What will typically happen is they'll go one of two ways. They'll either decide that the market's changed and they'll start adjusting their system, right? Or they'll take a step back and look at it over the long haul and just decide to stick with it, right? And if they stick with it, I think eventually things will get back to normal, which means, not every trade is going to be a loser. Not every trade is going to be a loser. But I think the real danger here when you're in a drawdown is to go ahead and think, all right, something's wrong here. I need to switch it up. The market's changed. Things are different. Janet Yellen is messing things up, or the Brexit, or whatever is, the war in Iraq, whatever is going on at the time gets blamed for chopping the markets around or moving things around. The other thing I like to do, though, is remind myself that there are certain times when, like as a daily chart trader or a weekly chart trader, I might not be doing well, but other traders who are trading the 1 hour charts or the 30-minute charts or the 15-minute charts, they could be doing really, really well. And likewise, when I'm doing well in the daily charts, some of those reversal traders on the 1 hour charts who are looking for a reversion to the mean are getting blasted. So it's one of those things where I think it makes sense to think of, when you're trading, who's on the other side. So if you're going to take a sell, you're going to sell the pound, who are those traders who would look at the same chart and look to buy, right? And the same thing when you're in a drawdown. If you're in a drawdown and you've had some losers in a row, who are the traders right now who are doing well? Because you should be able to figure that out. And usually for me, that just means looking at it from a different time frame. I'm not saying that you should do that and start trading the 1 hour charts after you've been trading the dailies for years and years. I just think that it gives you a little bit of perspective, and it really, the way that I look at it is just bad luck. Whenever I'm in a losing streak, I chalk it up to bad luck. Have I executed my system correctly? Yeah, okay. Have I been taking the right amount of risk per trade? Yeah, okay. Have the markets completely changed and totally made my system obsolete? Unlikely, unless my system has too many moving parts, in which case I shouldn't really be using it anyway. I like to use simple systems that don't have a lot of moving parts. So my assumption and my belief is that they will hold up over time. But those are all my thoughts on losing streaks. What about you, Darren? How do you approach this? I know you probably have a much different approach.
Yeah, well, I'm in drawdown a lot. Generally every week I have some drawdown. And there's kind of two camps of drawdown, isn't it? There's kind of the drawdown that occurs regularly and is, within the realms of the normal operation of your system. So like drawdown that you're quite comfortable with. And then every now and then there's just, your system couldn't have been any worse and it just completely falls apart. And those are really rare, and I think they're probably the hardest ones to deal with, because after a while, if you have a bit of drawdown every week or every month, trading your system, after a while you kind of get used to it, and you can recognize it's going on and say, okay, I know what I need to do here. I'm just going to work through it. But there are occasions where I wish I had some sort of way of saying, look, this drawdown is a little bit out of the ordinary. The market is doing something quite unusual now, and maybe I should just really, like you suggest, have a break, or perhaps even just like my strategy I can flip time frames, no problem. It's essentially the same on all time frames. So I've never actually been able to do it. One period that stands out in my mind is July and August last year on the pound dollar, where on the daily chart it had like I'd say 30 days of just going nowhere, which, you know, it's quite hard to find that sort of scenario over five or 6 years going back testing. I haven't found it happening, you know, before. But, you know, these things do, in some of my testing on the H1 time frame as well, in March, I found like a really, really nasty period of like 3 or 4 weeks where it just wasn't working out for my strategy. And, you know, you would have, in those periods, you would have got a drawdown much more severe than is usual. So, you know, I'd like to try and have some way of dealing with those, or perhaps just sort of taking a break, you know, have a week off trading, clear your mind, come back and start again. I'm not saying that's necessarily the best thing to do, but it would be a painful period to trade through. So really, I kind of have 2 camps of drawdown. One, the sort of regular, expected sort of drawdown that I'll get in my system, and then there's those kind of, you know, events where it just horribly falls apart. And I haven't really got anything in place to deal with them, because they would never have been catastrophic, just sort of very painful to deal with.
So when you say take time away, is there a certain way that you do that? Like, is it, okay, I'm down 15%, I'm going to step away? Or is it just kind of it's kind of a feel thing? Like sometimes you might step away when you're down 8 or 9%, and sometimes you might step down when you're, you know, 15, 20%. I guess my question is, for the listeners out there, do you have any hard and fast rules, or not really?
No, I would really go more about how I was feeling. And I think if I was in one of those drawdowns that was particularly bad, emotionally, I would start struggling with it. And that would be my indication, look, you're not in a good frame of mind to trade here. And, you know, hopefully I'd make a good judgment and say, right, you need to have a break. No, it's probably not going to work for everyone, but when I'm trading, I'm kind of listening to myself as much as I'm listening to the market. So that's what I'd be looking out for, is intense feelings, intense emotions, and my instinct to kick in and say, this isn't a good frame of mind to be trading in. Just have a break. You know, the market will still be here next week.
Yeah, right. And so what about those times? Because I know you like to take a lot of breaks and spend time away from the charts. What about those times? Because for some traders, these can be the most difficult, when you've been away from the charts and then you come back and you look and you see all of those trades that would have fit perfectly in your system and you miss them. What do you do for that?
Well, I'm never 100% away from the charts, Walter. You still can't resist having a look, can you? No, I think, you know, probably my system, with the way I trade, it's a constant flow of opportunities, and there's not like, you know, with your system, you'd have like a really good support and resistance and a really beautiful price action set up just how you like it. And, you know, and price would move to your preferred target. So those would kind of jump out at the chart view. But generally, when I look at charts, they all look the same. They all look like random zigzaggy movement and then the odd spurt in the one direction. So I think sort of visually we're kind of coming at charts from a different perspective.
Sure. And you take advantage, like your trading, as I understand it, like let's say that you have 3 losers in a row and then you have a winner. That winner could be compounded because you have additional positions that are triggered while you're, so in other words, you're adding to a winner in some instances, right? So that's one thing that might help you get out of a drawdown that people may not know, is that it's not like a 1-to-1 ratio necessarily, because some of your winning trades are compounded because there's multiple positions piled on. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes. I basically trade the change in direction. So, you know, sometimes if I've taken a long and there's a sort of a pause to go short, I would hedge my position. If it turned long again, then I'd add an extra position. So yeah, you kind of you're adding in the direction of the flow of price, if you like, and also I kind of do my position size in like the polar opposite to everyone else as well. You know, whereas I use the same lot size regardless of the stop. So the way I look at risk to reward is completely different as well. I look at, you know, the risk and reward as groups of trades rather than just an individual setup. So that makes a difference as well.
Right. So potentially some losing trades would cost more than others, and some winning trades would make more than others. I guess what I'm trying to do here is because here's what I say, and here's what I do when I'm in a losing streak is I will not try and make it all back. Right? That's one thing that I try and stay away from. So the overtrading bug is something that everyone's been bitten by, and it's terrible. The revenge trading, that sort of thing. So I don't do that. Instead, what I'll typically do is spend more time outside, so I try and get away from the computer, and sometimes I'll take a holiday. Sometimes I'll just leave, go away for a while, just a new environment. And if I do look at the computer, I won't look at the charts. What I'll do is instead I'll look at Forex Tester, I'll do some testing in Forex Tester, just convince myself that what I'm doing works, and remind myself that over the long haul, I'm expected to see a profit. And then what I love to see after I've spent time away from the charts like that is if I come back and look at the charts that I haven't seen for a while, they look so different. I don't know if you've experienced this, but sometimes when you're watching the charts, if you're watching the charts as they print and you see every little move up and down, and then finally the candle closes, and then you see it again, and sometimes it's hard for you to see exactly what's going on. But when you take a step back and you haven't seen the charts in a while, and then you see all of the things that have happened since you last saw the charts, it's like it's a whole new market, and it seems fresh to me. And I don't know if a lot of people can relate to that, but for me and my approach, I think that it's helpful because I can get stuck into certain ideas like anybody else. You get this confirmation bias where you feel like, for example, as a support and resistance trader, I say, well, the market is likely to hit this level and have some trouble. And you start getting this in your head, and everything you see is to support that idea. But if you spent time away from the charts and then you see whether it really did or not respect that level, it's like you're getting a new start, really. So, which is the same as Forex Tester. When you're in Forex Tester, if you're trading, 15 years ago in Forex Tester or 8 years ago in Forex Tester, that's a big difference too. That's a different chart as well to the live chart. So those are some of the things that I like to do to get sort of recharge my batteries. So the primary things I do to make sure that I come back fresh is I will spend time away from the chart, spend time outside, things like surfing or running or just going out bushwalking or whatever. I will also, if I do sit down in front of the charts, I will look at Forex Tester charts, test my system, get some confidence that what I'm doing is going to work over the long haul. I will also try to stay away from the live charts if possible, even if it's only from a few charts, right? Like maybe I just don't look at the Aussie or the Swissy. And then when I see those charts, it's a completely different story, and it feels fresh, and I don't have that confirmation bias working against my trading. Because before, I was so convinced that support and resistance level on the Aussie was going to hold. And now I can see it for what it is, which is, well, it held there for a little while, and then it blew right through it. So these sorts of things make sense to me, where you come at it with fresh eyes, where you get reinvigorated, you build up your confidence again. Because that's one of the things that suffers in a drawdown is your confidence. Is this working anymore? Is it broken? What's going on? What do I need to fix? What did I do wrong here? All those things start to creep in when you're in a drawdown. So those are the tools that I use. I guess from my point of view and the listener here, I'm wondering, do you have any sort of brain hacks or tricks that you can use when you're in a drawdown to help other traders out?
It very rarely happens to me that I'm having a really bad drawdown, or worse than I expect in normal trading anyway. But I think, likewise, I just step away from the charts. And I think maybe a few years ago, I'd keep trading and probably sort of make more mistakes, and like you say, trying to win the money back too quickly. And yeah, I think you learn in time that it's not going to help you in the long run. But do you have like a set sort of figure in your mind of when things are going wrong, or do you, like me, do you just kind of, right, I'm not feeling good about this and how I'm feeling about it? So do you have it kind of predetermined, if I go over 11% drawdown, then I'll take a break, or do you just use your feeling?
Yeah, no, I just use my feelings, really. I used to use a hard 10% level, as that would stop trading for 2 weeks. and just like a built-in break is made. The main question I have, I guess, is looking at the charts, did I execute my system correctly? And if the answer is yes, then it doesn't really matter. The drawdown is just chalked up to bad luck. And we know, the longer you trade, the more likely you are to experience an exceptional string of winners and losers. You keep drawing numbers out of the lotto, and eventually, you're gonna see weird combinations come up and things like that. And that's just the way it works. So my main concern when I'm in a drawdown is it me? Am I executing incorrectly? Am I doing something weird? If that's the case, then I'm concerned. But if I look at a trade and I say, like the one I took last week, which was a loser, if I look at that trade and I say, I would take that trade every single time. There's no way that I would look at that trade for any reason and say that's not a good trade. So the fact that it didn't work out, I don't have anything to offer there other than to say bad luck. And I think as traders, we look for reasons. As humans, we look for reasons, and we forget that there is luck involved. There are lucky trades and unlucky trades, and that's something that you can legitimately say, well, that was an unlucky trade. That's why it was a loser. It wasn't because I messed up my system. It wasn't because I, took on too much risk. It wasn't because I forgot this has to be a part of the trade as well, and I just disregarded that. It's not because of any of that. It's just because it was bad luck. So to me, it's not that big of a deal, and you also don't feel as bad. It's not part of your problem if you have an unlucky trade, right? So the blame is outside of you now. So that also feels better. But yeah, it's a tricky thing for people to go through. And if you're not aware of what likely is to be your drawdown in the future, like when I say that, I mean drawdown, I mean how many consecutive losers are you likely to have given the parameters of your system? If you're not prepared for that, it can really hurt when it happens. So it's something to definitely dig into and take a look at, because a lot of traders aren't aware that when they have a 51% win rate, the chances of them having 8 or 9 losing trades in a row is great. It's very, 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 very high. So these are the sorts of things you have to look at.
Yeah. Well, my win rate sits around 50% pretty much permanently nowadays. And since the start of the year, I've had a run of 7 winners and I've had a run of 8 losers, which was just the other week, actually. And surprisingly enough, it didn't feel so bad, those 8 losers, because, I was looking at the market, I was taking the right entries, I was managing them fairly well, but the market just happened to sort of go against me. And I think drawdown is something people really have difficulty with, and I think they try too much to remove it from their trading. So, they'll backtest, lots of data and see that there is drawdown, but it makes profit over the time. That's why they go on trading it. But when they're actually in the moment, especially if they've had a particularly nice win streak, if they give half of that back, they find that very difficult to deal with. And it's good the point you made where you look back and it was a good setup and you would take it every time, but it lost and you just accept it and move on. And that's kind of one of the key lessons to learn, really, is just that acceptance that you will have drawdowns. Sometimes it'll be above and beyond what you expect, but it's part of the game.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's why we get paid as traders is for taking on risk and the likelihood that money may be gone when the trade is over. So it's just something that we have to keep in mind. So I think if you're one of those people who really likes to win, and let's say for example, like you're a great business person and you've crushed your competition. So you have like a bicycle store and you've crushed all the bicycle stores in your vicinity and you've just won. I don't know if trading is really going to be something that you'll transition into easily, because you have to deal with these drawdowns. You have to deal with these losing streaks. It's a part of what happens. And if you get a little bit funny, like as the bicycle business owner, you might, when you see your competitor take out an ad in the paper, you might take out a full page ad or whatever, they, we'll honor their coupons or whatever, it can get really nasty because you want to win. That approach, I believe, in trading doesn't work, and it can be a big problem. So it's a difficult thing to deal with, but I think that once you start to take the approach that it's not you, it's just a part of trading, then it doesn't hurt as much. So it's always a difficult time for traders, but and one thing that you have an advantage, your advantage is in that that you've got a 50% chance of winning. So these are to be expected. Like you say, every week you're going to be in some sort of drawdown. Now, hopefully by the end of the week you've pulled out of that and made money, but it's just part of the deal. That's how you see these things, right? You know that that's eventually going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, even if you sort of trade blindly, you're probably going to get a 50% win rate. So it kind of gives you a bit of scope for. It's rare for it to drop much below that, but you do get spikes where it performs better as well. I used to try and have high expectancy trading systems, and I just found that made it harder to deal with, because it's much harder to maintain those sort of very high win rates. Right. Really.
Well, I appreciate your time, Darren, and hopefully we've given the listeners here some ideas on how to deal with drawdowns, and so that they're not something that ruins your trading or your system, because I think that's the big danger, is that you change too many things because of your drawdowns. So thanks for your time, Darren.
Okay, Walter. See you soon.
See you soon.